Welcome to our Biomed Unleashed podcast. I'm Alisa, a student specializing in regenerative medicine at Maastricht University.
And I'm Misha, also a student at Maastricht University, studying Maastricht Science Program.
Our podcast is endorsed by the MERLN Institute for Technology-Inspired Regenerative Medicine and supervised by Professor Lorenzo Moroni. We aim to make regenerative medicine accessible and understandable to everyone.
In our episodes, we invite scientists, specialists, and innovators to share their career insights and latest discoveries in this exciting field of regenerative medicine.
How do you commercialize regenerative medicine?
What does it take to build a successful biotech startup?
And is future of regenerative medicine closer than we think? Right now, we're in the very city center of Maastricht, in front of this beautiful building.
Here is the office of RegMed XB, a big regenerative medicine company.
And it was founded by Marianne van der Steen, our today's guest.
She might be the definition of the powerhouse in regenerative medicine innovation. She's not only doing research in biomedical entrepreneurship, but also bridging the gap between scientists, policymakers, and business people, and co-founding game-changing ventures.
With over 15 years of experience of scaling up regenerative medicine startups, mentoring entrepreneurs, and making transatlantic collaborations possible, she is shaping the future of regenerative medicine. Let's dive in! Hello, Professor van der Steen. We're very grateful to have you today as our guest.
Hello, Professor van der Steen. Really nice to meet you.
Well, I'm very happy to meet you too.
Thank you. So today we want to start with going back to your academic path. You have received your PhD in economics from the University of Twente in the Netherlands, and afterwards you worked as an assistant professor of economics at the Delft University of Technology. And further in your career, what inspired you to focus on commercialization of scientific knowledge through its translation into competitive products and startup companies?
Well, when I started my academic career, if you like, I was very much intrigued by, on the one hand, because I was doing my studies and my PhD at a technical university. So from a technical perspective, you saw all these scientific findings and a lot of possibilities, and it seems very difficult to translate this to new products. And I was very much intrigued with that. And at the time, and we can talk about that later, it was still very hard to start up university spin-offs. It was difficult, perceived in Europe as something that was a discussion point. Can scientific findings that are basically financed by public made into something commercial? That was a big discussion point at that time. So I was very intrigued. Especially by regenerative medicine, which was called at the time tissue engineering in the university world. So that's how I got started, learning how it works to start up companies. So my research was very much focused on that part.
Now, if we go further into your career, you're currently a professor of entrepreneurship in healthcare and chief development officer at the MERLN Institute for Technology-Inspired Regenerative Medicine at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. It means that you play a pivotal role in translating regenerative medicine discoveries at the MERLN Institute into the market-ready products. So our question is, why did you decide to work on valorization of specifically regenerative medicine projects?
Yeah, when I started my academic career, I was at Delft University, and I did meet Professor Clemens van Blitterswijk, who was going from industry, Isotis, a wonderful biomaterial company, back to the university again. And I was very inspired by this. Why not move from industry to university? Why can't we, move in between sectors? And so what I decided to combine my career. So a professorship in economics and in business administration combined with starting up companies in the regenerative medicine field. And I felt at the time that regenerative medicine had so much potential, and it was one of the most inspiring for me technology sectors. So that's why I moved in this direction.
Because as you said, commercializing research is quite a complex process, and especially at that time. And but also in the field of regenerative medicine, it's even more complex. Can you tell us why it's even more difficult to create like value from regenerative medicine technologies compared to other fields?
Yeah, the difficulty is, on the one hand, from a technical perspective, it is the engineering part that needs to fit with the biological part. And that is already interdisciplinary, right? And that is more the technical aspect. But a business or commercial perspective, if you look at regenerative medicine, it takes very long. And the risks from an investor perspective are pretty high. And why are the costs high? Well, it's a pretty long period, right? From starting animal models up to going into the patient. It's very expensive, but the risks are also, and for me that's very intriguing, but the risks are still in the regulatory space, for instance. We are still, as an industry, trying to find out a lot of things about manufacturing, about the regulatory environment. So everything is pretty new. So let's say for a pharmaceutical company or a VC, it is perceived still as a bit more risky than maybe other areas.
And VC is venture capitalists,
Venture
right?
capitalists,
yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and venture capital is already an interesting one, right? Because if you look at maybe another technical field, you need risk capital for biotech, and in particular for regenerative medicine. And risk capital is venture capital.
Marianne, and you're also co-founder and former director of RegMed XB, an institute which translates groundbreaking discoveries in regenerative medicine technologies into commercial products and companies. And it has raised an investment of over 250 million euros over the years, and that's impressive. That's really impressive. But could you tell us what is the idea behind this initiative? Why did you decide to create RegMed XB?
Yes, we started RegMed XB actually from the same perspective as I was just describing, because 8 years ago we saw a lot of potential of scientific findings, patent portfolios that could move to the patients. But we felt that the translational part was still very difficult, especially in Europe. And if I look at the United States, and I spent quite some time in the United States, you have, for instance, the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. It's called CERM, especially focused on translational part. And I can explain, if you like, why it is so difficult to find financing for that part. So I started RegMed XB together with Clement from Blitterswijk and together with the Kidney Foundation, Tom Oostrom, and of course with many, many scientists, who really wanted to ride along on this beautiful initiative. We felt it was time to really find financing and find a focus on the translational part. And that's why we created the Moonshots, and we said, this has to happen. And we said, we need 250 million to make it happen. Because if you only have 100 million again, it will be so difficult. So we need a substantial amount, and that's where I put a lot of my years in to make it happen.
And talking about the moonshots that you just mentioned, so as far as we understand, in the company, the RegMed XB, there are like programs for promising regenerative medicine technologies, and they are called moonshots.
Yes.
And there are currently 5 moonshots, as we read on the website. So for osteoarthritis, for cardiovascular diseases, for diabetes, kidney, and eye cornea. So I think you started with kidney as far as I understood, but then why exactly this Moonshots? Why exactly these diseases? What inspired you to do this Moonshots?
Yeah, we chose the large chronic diseases in the world, really, but also in the Netherlands. We said we want to make, a big change in medicine. And what are the areas with chronic diseases without any cure and a big burden on patients? Let's focus on these areas because we must find solutions. And so that's why we started with type 1 diabetes. We started with kidney disease and the other ones you mentioned. But these are two very important areas in the world as well as in the Netherlands. And an additional reason why we chose for them, if you look at the scientific field in the Netherlands, and by the way, RegMed XB is a Dutch Flemish initiative. We said immediately we have to cross borders, and later on we can maybe also talk about the United States. We said a patient in the Netherlands is the same patient as in another country, and we need such a huge investment to cure these diseases. Let's collaborate. So that's why we started like that. But in the Netherlands, we're very strong scientifically in those particular fields. So we said this is an absolute chance to collaborate differently as scientists with the health foundations and make it happen. So that's why we chose those fields.
Mm-hmm. And talking about collaboration, in one of your interviews, you mentioned that your work involves collaboration of academia, government, and the industry in order to bring technologies to society. And we think regenerative medicine in particular requires massive and well thought collaborations between these sectors. So, and how do you foster such a collaborative environment?
Yeah, this is a very strong belief of mine, that collaboration, like I said, international, but also public-private collaboration is essential. Otherwise, it's never going to work. There's not one company who can do it. And also financially, it's not possible. But how do you do it? I think in the end, I'm not looking back at my career, but looking at the years, it's all about people. If people want to make something happen, and these people can be in government, in charity, in science, industry. If people really want something, it can happen. If you try to solve it on an institutional level, there will be a lot of bureaucracy and rules. But if you find those people who say, no, we have to cure this disease, it can happen. So that's how I look at it, how you can make it happen. I think you need a big vision, like we are going to cure it, and find the right people, and then the rest will follow. That's my simple view on life nowadays.
That's actually interesting. So it's like first networking and finding people who are also keen on making the difference, and then other will kind of build up around that.
Exactly. And then you will find the financing. It follows, I would almost say. But finding the right people, and if I look at RegMed XB, it was possible because we had really key stakeholders who believed in it. So we find the right people here in Maastricht University, we find the right people in the Kidney Foundation, Diabetes Foundation, and so forth, the right scientists, and then, it follows. The rest followed the vision and the people who really put a lot of energy in this to make it happen.
And if we now talk a bit more about your role in the product development, so there are many stages of product development where your expertise can play an important role, right? And these steps may include evaluating the product, selecting some for clinical trials, arranging the clinical trials themselves, and then helping to launch and scale up the product on the market. So we were wondering, what stage of product development are you typically involved in? Or it's during the overall process? How does it work?
Yeah. I think if I look at my role in the startup companies and all the initiatives, it is often in the early stage, because in the early stage a lot of mistakes are made, because you basically have the science, you don't have the money yet, and you're just starting it up. And if you do it right in the early stage, it will be much easier to find investments and to continue the company. So I think I played an important role in that part. Also on the fundraising part, because the scientists are of course very, very good and capable in the science and more on the technical side. But making something a success, it really requires also a lot of other skills. And I think I played an important role there. But also scaling up. I think I helped in my career, especially also with the Global Scale-Up Program and the MBI, and in different roles really, to help companies to make the step from, hey, we have a really good startup company, we have seed money, often you start in a certain region, to really make that huge leap to the United States usually, because the US is the largest market and the pharmaceutical companies are there and the large medical device companies are there. So their requirements of a successful company they like to acquire are basically the conditions in the United States. So helping a lot of companies through the years to make that huge leap and to scale up, if you like.
And do you also kind of learn them, like if we're talking about scientists, if you help like scientists to start like to promote their product, right, their research to the market, do you kind of teach them entrepreneurial skills? Can it be said like that as well?
Yeah, we have the Global Scale-Up Program is exactly focused on that. So it is a program to help European companies to make the leap, if you like, to the United States. So there we teach them basically all the elements that are necessary to enter the US market, because the US is very different again than, let's say, the Netherlands or Germany or another country. So it is in a way teaching or workshops and helping them to understand it better. But for me, the way that I move around, if you like, because my network is here in Europe, but also in the United States, and I meet a lot of students, PhDs, but also industry people, and I always am very open to learn about people. Again, I think it's all about people to make something a success. So when I spot people who have an entrepreneurial interest, entrepreneurial spirit, usually I like to talk to them and say, hey, what would you like to do? And what is your future? Because it is all about people. Some scientists rather stay scientists and like to be part of a spin-off company, but really to help it forward, to develop a prototype or develop animal models and maybe get into, let's say, phase 1 or 2A of the clinical trials. But they really are scientists and they love science. So you can teach them entrepreneurial skills or capabilities, but that's not who they are. And there are some people who really, really are open to it. And then you teach them, but it's not almost teaching, but it's working with them to make that move to become an entrepreneur. That is very nice.
Like guiding.
Guiding, yes, and take them along on projects so they learn, and then later on they can become entrepreneurs themselves. And I had a lot of people around me that I took along on projects, and they were exposed to it and who are entrepreneurs now, and that's wonderful to see. That's what I really enjoy.
So yeah, that's great. And maybe if you could give an advice to people who aspire to build a strong team, like capable of not only working in the lab, but also bringing it to commercial application, what would it be?
It's really to experiment. Just do it. If you feel that you enjoy it, just tag along with a entrepreneurial professor, for instance. And there are always spin-off companies around, you know, you, the person who is interested. And or maybe if you have an idea yourself with a patent, or try it, because there's only way to really learn it, it's to try it and say, hey, I tag along with a professor or a spin-off, or maybe take the initiative yourself and see if you can start something up, because that's how you learn. And don't be, you know, be very open, and it's a learning curve. And there's no failures. You learn from that company, hey, you move on. And if you enjoy it, that's most important. And that's a lesson that somebody told me in the early stage when I started working. It was on one of the MERLN companies, but then it was still called MIRA from Twente University. And I started working on the business development of one of the companies. And I remember that one of the core people told me, they said, listen, it's really about the process, because we never know if something is going to be really successful. So the people who get in just to make money or success, you never know. You never know. You're in there, but you never know. You should really enjoy the process. Do you have fun doing this? And if you do, who knows? You know, you can become successful, the company can become successful, but maybe not this company, but the next company. But do you really enjoy it? And that's something, that advice helped me a lot. Are you doing it because it's your life, right?
Also, a lot of mistakes can be made throughout the process. As you said, you can fail, right? We wanted to ask, do you have any examples, maybe when you or your project or something failed, and maybe how you tackled this?
Yeah, that is a very good question, because first of all, what is failure? You never know when you start in regenerative medicine, you start a company. It's the data that prove the success, and you never know it 100%, right? There are things you have to do right, and you can do right, and there's a lot of, it's the data, you don't know. So that's first of all a point, but it's a good question. What happened with my companies? One of the companies, and I can't mention the name, of course, it just took a very, very, very long time to get it out of the university. And I was maybe too optimistic to think we had a potential investor, and then we had another potential investor, and I was like, oh, we can arrange this, come on, move forward. But it took way too long. And yeah, that you can say it felt like a failure because it took too long, and investors didn't want to, they put their money into something else. And maybe I was too optimistic that it was taking a very long time. So maybe that is one of these things. I think when you are entrepreneurial, you have a pretty positive view on life, which is good. You need it, because if you are pessimistic, you're not going to start a regenerative medicine company. You see too many problems. But sometimes the problem with an entrepreneurial person is that you're like, oh, we can fix it. Come on, let's do it. And a lot of things can be fixed, but there's also things that take way longer, and that's something that I know from myself. I can be very optimistic, which helped me in a lot of cases, but sometimes things cannot be changed. And then I forget about that again and I start a new company again. So
it's important to keep up, right?
Yeah, I think you need to be realistic because it's all about de-risking in the end. It's not just being an optimist, but I think it's a combination. It's almost like it's almost a paradox, right? You have to be optimistic, otherwise you're not doing it. Optimistic also not to think in boxes, because if you think too much in boxes, there will be nothing new. It will be so incremental that nobody wants to invest in it. So yes, you need that optimistic, innovative perspective on the world. And at the same time, that's the paradox, you need to de-risk the whole time. So what I know from myself, and I feel that paradox in myself, and I have that paradox in every successful team. So the paradox is you show the vision and you really want to do it. And at the same time, maybe in the back office, you're like, this can go wrong. What is my plan B? Ooh, are we spending too much money? We have to be careful. So it's that paradox. And also in teams, I think our successful teams, I know for myself, I have a very large vision and I go for, I'm going to make it a success. That's my approach. And I see that with a lot of successful companies. You need someone, in the leadership team that is going to make it happen, But in that same team, you need somebody who is more, risk averse and sees problems and sees issues. And there's always a bit of tension then in that team, but you avoid problems. But if you would all be like, risk averse, nothing happens, right? Nobody dares to take a step. So it's that paradox that is interesting.
So big outcome. So you gotta find balance between risking and de-risking.
Absolutely, constantly, yeah.
And we have also read that you are establishing the transatlantic collaborations, finally, between the US and the Netherlands. And you're founder president of Hummingbird Biomedical Company, which is focused on connecting regenerative medicine companies transatlantically, as well as building collaborations between public and private sectors. So our question is, how do you think such collaborations fostered by Hummingbird Biomedical are important in overcoming challenges in regenerative medicine, from manufacturing to regulations and funding?
Yes, the way I see it, because we were already talking about it, that I always have a big vision. I really want to make things happen and see paradigm shifts. So the way I see it, with RegMed XB, we started looking at the translational part, right? And I think we've come a long way with our Moonshots for the Netherlands, for Flanders, which is wonderful, and for Europe, if you like, because RegMed XB is one of the translational institutes in Europe. And then we said, well, one of the issues is really manufacturing. Like we discussed before, manufacturing is difficult, technically, but also to finance it, we need that infrastructure. So Regen Biomedical is really building that type of equipment that needs to make the big difference in the future of medicine. But then I saw a lot of barriers that you need with financing. We need to think transatlantic. We maybe have to think global to make it happen, because it's too costly. And there are too few regenerative medicine companies in each area to finance. So we need to collaborate, public, private, but also globally and transatlantic. And that's why I started Hummingbird Biomedical, to really think across borders, transatlantic, the United States, Europe. But I also believe, and that's my strong drive as well, what we've seen with COVID, the COVID area, if you like, that manufacturing was a big issue because well, I don't have to explain that what happened, but what we see now, it's called localization of manufacturing. So a lot of regions would like to see local manufacturing in case there is an outbreak of a disease, but also with regenerative medicine, there's a lot of difficulties to transport, for instance, tissue or cells, right? So you rather see it on a local, regional basis. And I'm not just talking about provinces or states, but thinking continents, for instance, right? So that is something in regenerative medicine that I see. And that is a reason why we see more localization of manufacturing. But at the same time, we need to keep on collaborating together to make sure that expertise in the United States, that we use that expertise or expertise here. But another topic that is very close to me is affordability of the therapies, because in the end, why I am in this business, if you like, is that I believe that every patient should have the ability to get access to therapies, which is, of course, difficult sometimes. We see that in orphan diseases. That's a bit comparable, not completely, but a bit comparable to what we see with the prices of regenerative medicine. So it is really one of my drives in my life to see the affordability for everyone. So the global collaboration beyond the transatlantic is something that that's very close to my heart.
So to sum up, Hummingbird Biomedical tries to connect all these companies globally, right? And then, for example, I thought about the example of such companies that, just biomanufacturing companies in regenerative medicine. Here in Maastricht, in the Netherlands, you co-founded Regen Biomedical in 2021, and which is a spin-off Maastricht-based company of RegMed XB. And it focuses on exactly building large-scale production of human tissues, as you also mentioned. So you already mentioned its role in globally, that people wanted to localize all these manufacturing processes.
Yes.
But also, we know that, for instance, not only for tissues, but for stem cell treatments, there are very high requirements for cell quality, for safety, and it's very challenging to achieve and even assess this safety and quality. Because, again, stem cell culture methods are still being refined, and for safety and efficacy evaluation, they're not clear because it's very novel.
Yeah.
So the question that we had, looking a bit into future, what is your perspective on how close we are to being able to treat patients with this manufactured tissues, artificial tissues that we grow in the lab, like in this region, like in companies like Regen Biomedical?
Yeah, it is a challenge. You are right. And it depends a little bit where we are talking about. I think if you look, for instance, at Vertex and type 1 diabetes, getting closer and closer, there's certain areas, I think osteoarthritis, closer and closer. Kidney is still very, very difficult because of the system. So you are right. I think we're getting in certain areas closer and closer. It's hard to put a year on it because you never know. But I think it's the innovation that is still needed. Maybe also with AI, the interdisciplinary, I would say, collaboration, if you like, between the biologics, the engineering, AI, all these different aspects. We should collaborate and make it better and better. So it's still progress, and that's why with Hummingbird, we have Regen Biomedical here. We have a lab at the Mayo Clinic in the United States. Mayo Clinic is also putting a lot of effort in the manufacturing, upscaling manufacturing. We're looking also to set up another lab, maybe in a very different region of the world. And it's that collaboration, and of course we have many partners that we're collaborating with, that is very, very important. So we're organizing, for instance, a tech summit in Boston to discuss all these manufacturing issues that need to be resolved. And for instance, this month I'm in San Diego on a manufacturing summit, which is important. So that collaboration is very important, but also to try to move it forward. And that is what Hummingbird is doing, looking to acquire licenses or companies that are actually doing an amazing job, but are more in the scientific sphere, if you like, still, and to try to bring those companies to the United States, put an excellent team on it with people from the Mayo Clinic, people from Regen and other partners, and make it a very professional company and make sure that the manufacturing is done much more efficiently, so it will be more affordable. So really trying to bring in that business excellence to scientific excellence to bring it to the patients much faster. So that is really the mission of Hummingbird. How can we bring it faster to the patient by being more professional, if you like?
You mentioned AI in regenerative medicine, and there is an emerging concept of in-silico trials, which are computer-stimulated experiments used in biomedical research and drug development. Right. And do you believe that such in-silico trials could potentially make the development process of regenerative medicine products faster and more cost-effective and efficient in whole?
Yeah, answer is very simple, yes. I think that's really the direction we have to move into. And and that requires a lot, because interdisciplinary, we need to have more and more research going on as well. So on the science side, which is of course always very hard because we're in certain boxes, but we need that collaboration, and maybe the public-private part is very important. So talking about translational, maybe we need specific focus on the interdisciplinary, I would say, innovation. So my answer is yes, and I think in the near future, that is how we will make progress, and that's how we make it affordable, because it's too expensive otherwise if we keep on going the way it's moving forward now.
Now we just gotta work and hope.
Yeah, well, hope, I don't believe in hope. I believe in action, action in the right direction.
Fair.
Because then it will happen. Even though you don't know the exact direction you have to move into, but if you move in the right direction, you will get there.
And we were talking a bit more about, I guess, future, but talking about success. So, for example, if like the company is being scaled up, then how to measure success, and not just in terms of revenue, but also in terms of scientific and societal impact, how it can be measured?
Yeah, it's very important, I think, what you're saying. It's not just financial. For me, it is, again, that affordability for patients. So can we reach a lot of patients? It's not just a number from a financial perspective, but can we reach the patients who need it? For me, that's a societal effect. On the one hand, that you can reach people. In the end, the world is about people. You know, we can make it all very aggregate, but it's about people. I think if you take more a typical impact societal perspective, chronic diseases are a huge burden on the healthcare system. And so eventually people cannot be treated anymore in the near future if we keep on going like this, because it's too expensive. So it is a societal impact effect if we can find solutions, because like metabolic and chronic diseases lead to other diseases. As you probably know, diabetes leads to kidney failure. Kidney failure leads to cardiovascular. So it's a cascade of trouble on a personal level for a patient, but also on societal level in cost. So for me, solving those chronic diseases, that's how we started RegMed, that's why we are in Hummingbird Biomedical, is solving having societal impact. It has impact on the people, on the patients, beyond financial success. And one of the elements I really would like to bring in, and that's one of the issues also for Hummingbird Biomedical, but also already in RegMed, and I think for a lot of people who are in the healthcare space, how can we make it affordable? I think we should, that is very, very important question for all of us.
Yes, and talking about specific examples, could you maybe say what is the most successful project that you helped to upscale?
For myself or in general, for society?
Yes, I think in both senses.
Yeah, I think if we, and I'm very, very happy with one of the companies that basically was part of RegMed XB, that's called Neo Kidney, and that is a portable kidney device, and that is not a biological kidney, which would be like the ideal, if you like, in the end, to have a biological kidney, so people don't have to wait for the transplants anymore, as an example. But to find an intermediate solution, that is a portable kidney, makes the life for patients completely different. So that is something I really enjoy. It's not my effort, but it's part of my very close community and people I work with very closely. So that's something I admire, to find those type of solutions. And of course I can mention others, we're working on a device for delivery of islets of Langerhans. I think that's a beautiful example, also from RegMed, and it also from my own institute, scientists are working on it. So I think those, and I can mention many of them, but and for instance, myself, I'm working now on osteoarthritis, a solution. It's hard to pick, because I think everybody who has been sick or has a disease, once you have a certain disease, that feels like the worst disease in the world, right? So I think all of these solutions are fantastic.
Actually, we don't want to finish this discussion because we really like it. But we have the last question for you today. It's quite interesting. What would you do if not valorization of scientific knowledge?
Ooh, what else would I do? Oh, it's my life, it's my identity, so what would I do? That is a really good question. It's a life question for me. What would I do? I think I would try to find another, cause that's close to my heart. Maybe if it wouldn't be the translational part, if it wouldn't be regenerative medicine, I probably would spend my time in, it's close to it again, but biosimilars, trying to find solutions for the less developed countries or people with less money. And I think we should have it everywhere in the world, because these solutions would also be really good for developed countries, if you like. Maybe biosimilars find solutions that are more affordable, but I think it's pretty close to what I'm doing. But yeah.
But have you thought of maybe doing something completely, like if we just if we just not talk about regenerative medicine, not talk about bio part?
Right. I would probably than travel the world and write a book. Wow. Something like that, you know, just write a book about something completely different. Nice. You know, just find inspiration in the world. If I would stop this, I'd go and travel.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for Professor van der Steen for the opportunity to conduct an interview with you. We really like this discussion. And yeah, maybe we hope to have maybe another interview in the future or something else to continue our discussions, because we think it's very important. Overall biomanufacturing and entrepreneurship part, and bringing like actually what is done in the labs and in institutes by scientists to bring it actually to people, to, in the case of regenerative medicine, to cure people, right?
Right.
So thank you very much for this discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you very much again. And it is really important so that we not only take it to people physically, but also we advertise it like with such amazing guests like you.
Yes.
So yes,
we're just talking about that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you. So.
Thank you.
Also, we want to thank our other team members. If you can just stand up and come here, they were looking that everything is working. So these two people, Alba Villagrasa Martin and Amalia Bagdasaran, thank you very much to them. So it's our first video interview. We hope you liked it, and we hope to see you watching our next videos. See you!
See you, bye-bye!
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Biomed Unleashed podcast and will stay with us for the next ones.